What's up everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna do the ultimate buyer's guide for the Audi RS3. Now here in the United States, we have seen basically two different generations of the RS3, the 8V and then currently the 8Y. With that said, we have never got the hatchback version. Unfortunately, that's only overseas. I would love it if we had that in the States. And from what we're seeing, 2027 might just be the final year for the inline 5-cylinder engine, which means the RS3 is gonna pretty much be done after 2027. Now, one of the most unique things about the Audi RS3 is, of course, that engine. This car comes with a 2.5 liter inline 5-cylinder turbocharged engine. You really don't see 5-cylinder engines aside from maybe a couple cars here and there. Now, for 2017 to 2020, which is the 8V, the first generation that we saw here, of course, it's gonna have this same exact engine. All these cars are also only paired to a 7-speed dual clutch transmission with a quattro all-wheel drive system. Now, the first cars are gonna make 400 horsepower and 354 pound-feet of torque. Now for 2019, they did re-rate the engine to 395 horsepower. Doesn't really mean anything, but fundamentally same horsepower. Now, once you got into 2022, which is the 8Y, notice there is no 2021 Audi RS3. That was kind of Audi's transition year from 8V to 8Y. So once we move into 2022 and up, you still had 400 horsepower, but with 369 pound-feet of torque. Now, for 2025, they kind of made a, I guess, mid-cycle refresh. That was what people seem to be calling the 8Y.5. So that one, they re-rated the engine's horsepower, and now they claim this car makes 394 horsepower, still with the same 369 pound-feet of torque. But fundamentally, from the 8V to the 8Y, you're looking similar horsepower and torque figures all around it. These cars can do 0 to 60 in about 3.3 seconds. They have been tested at doing that. Audi rates it a little bit slower than that, but these cars are rocket ships. Now, one of the biggest differences between the 8V to the 8Y, as far as mechanically speaking, is the rear differential. Now that the 8Y car has a little bit more technology in it, they've done an upgraded rear differential. It's the new RS torque splitter rear diff. So that's improved a lot of the handling abilities, the power delivery, and things like that. And with that, there's better drive modes, even a rear bias drive mode in this car that the first generation never had. So let's go over some of the main differences between the 8V cars and the 8Y cars, along with the 8Y.5 cars. Mechanically, there are some differences that I've noticed, especially when driving the original one, our car, as well as a 2025 model year. It seems like the original ones, awesome cars for sure. The 8Y is a bit more refined. Its comfort mode seems to be a little bit more plush, a little bit more just comfortable overall. And because this car now has the RS performance mode, it seems to crank it up to 11 versus just 10 on an RS3. The steering is tighter, the handling is sharper, the suspension is stiffer, the power delivery is just a bit more raw. So they've really dialed this car up a notch when you bump it to the 8Y. 8Y.5 are minuscule differences. I noticed just a tad more plushness in the comfort mode and just a tad more rawness in the RS performance mode, but it is super, super small differences. Mainly that was really just a cosmetic change. So with that said, the 8V car has the Audi timeless style. I mean, they're great looking cars, just super clean lines all around. The interior, you're gonna see Napa leather, the quilted stitching was an option. You had Alcantara on the steering wheel, that cool flip up navigation screen. When you bump it up to the 8Y, the exterior completely different. It's significantly more bold looking. You got the massive grille, the full LED headlights and taillights, a little bit sharper angles throughout it. The front fenders had the wider design to it as well. Not everybody liked it. It doesn't have that same classic Audi look, but in my opinion, I think this looks a lot cooler. It just looks really sharp overall. Interior wise, once again, new multimedia system. You have the fully digital gauge cluster that was an option back on the 8V cars, but it looks really cool in the 8Y. Got the nav screen integrated. There's carbon fiber trim. You do get some gloss black trim all around it, which is kind of a downside. However, I've upgraded our car with a carbon fiber piece. And then along with that, you have a little bit more edgy interior style overall. And then with the 8Y.5, they basically did a small facelift for the front and rear bumpers. And then on the interior, they gave it a few pieces of plastic that are nicer materials rather than just basic plastic. So just a couple small things here and there. So moving on to price point now. So for brand new MSRP, the 8V cars started around the $55,000 mark. When we bumped it up to 8Y for 2022, starting MSRP was now $63,000, and they went as high as around 70 grand, depending on the options you spec. Our car was 65 grand. We only optioned the RS technology package. You could get black optics, you could get carbon fiber ceramic brakes. There was a color interior package that this suede material was red, there was red accents, or you could do that in green. So there's a couple of little options here and there. Now for 2025 and up, MSRP bumped up a little bit more, starting now at $65,000, and I'm seeing them spec'd out to $77,000. Again, with carbon ceramic disc brakes, the dynamic package, that seems to be a new package on the newer car, black optics, carbon fiber packages, a lot of those seem to have all those options. Now, used car values, these things hold value pretty good. If you look at the oldest 8V cars, 2017s, you can definitely get them in the $30,000 range with a lot of miles. However, I think around $40,000 with around 40 to 50,000 miles is kind of the low end without being too crazy on mileage. Our car, the original 8Ys, again, are holding value really strong. With low mileage, you're pretty much gonna get MSRP. If I sold our car today, which has just over 5,000 miles, I honestly could get 65 to 70 grand pretty easily. And when you're looking at them on the used market, they seem, again, with low miles, to hold their original MSRP. Depending on how many miles you have, once you hit like 10,000 miles, they're gonna start to creep down a little bit, but this car still, you're getting them in the low 60s, high 50s at the bottom end. So moving on to cost to own these cars. So our first year in North Carolina, we pay property taxes every single year, which obviously is stupid, but that's just what we have to do. It was $750. They go off of your purchase price. Now, year number 2, which we just got that a little while ago, it was $500, just because the tax value goes down every year, which is good. It helps you out, even though the actual value of the car didn't really change. So not really that expensive to re-register it every single year. We get around 26 miles per gallon, and that's with me driving it harder, my wife cruising in it. So kind of a mix of driving highway, city, back mountain roads, having fun with it. It's not that much to fill it up, given it has a small tank. It's like $35 currently with current gas prices. Insurance, this is about $700 per year. So not really anything crazy. Multi-car with our home, all that stuff. It's just not expensive to insure cars here, especially when you have a 16-year perfect driving record. Now, maintaining this car, again, for us with the low mileage, I've done 2 oil changes. If you do it yourself, it's about $100. You need oil and an oil filter, and it is one of the most easy cars to do an oil change on. Now, depending on, again, how many miles you put on it, how hard you drive it, brake pads, things like that will come up. But what I have found with multiple cars, I've owned like 12 different cars, my wife's owned several cars. If you can maintain a car yourself, if you know how to do this stuff yourself, it's just not that expensive. You can get really good aftermarket things for brake pads, rotors, you know, the oil change, transmission, differential servicing, and do it yourself. It's not a car that's gonna break the bank. Reliability issues with these cars, there's not that much. This 5-cylinder is pretty strong. Some people may not trust it as much as like a B58 from BMW, but to be honest, if you service the car properly, an annual oil change every 5,000 miles, obviously the European synthetic oil, you know, people aren't really seeing major issues. Higher mileage cars, the things you might start seeing is maybe some oil leaks. However, not that hard to fix that up. And again, depends on how the car has been driven, treated, and maintained. Some common issues with these, the rear strut mounts seem to maybe rattle or get loose over time. I think our car might have that. There is a click I am hearing in the back, and it's not my exhaust rattling, it's nothing that's loose. I need to check the strut bolt. So possibly that might be the one issue that we are finding with our car. Squealing brakes is another thing you're gonna notice with these cars. Our car, by far, the brakes squeal when you're going slow, if they're not warmed up, if it's cold out. It's high performance brake pads, you have massive front rotors. That's just kind of inherent with a car that has performance focused brakes. High pressure fuel pumps, again, higher mileage cars, you might see some issues like that pop up. Fuel injectors as well. And then the only other thing some people see is electrical glitches, some lagginess in these modern screens, particularly the 8Y cars. We have seen a little bit of lagginess in the screen every now and then. Sometimes the CarPlay doesn't connect for a while, little things like that. It's kind of few and far between. There was a time where we didn't really drive the car for like 3 or 4 weeks straight, and there was a check engine light, and I scanned it. There was a bunch of low voltage faults in the car. I cleared them, drove it, and everything was fine. So you might see that in this car. Other than that, though, They seem honestly pretty reliable as long as you just keep up with the scheduled maintenance. Do maintenance yourself to save a lot of costs. Lastly, what are you going to be looking for if you're going to be buying one of these used or new? So as expected, if you're looking at a used one, you know, people buying RS3s aren't exactly dailying them, driving them like a grandma. These are not driven like a Toyota Corolla. People are going to be buying these to take them to the track, the autocross, go have some fun on the back mountain roads, do some drag racing. These cars are built to drive hard. With that said, they are over-engineered. They are designed to handle the abuse. So when you are looking for a used one, yeah, it's probably going to have been driven rather hard sometimes, not all the time, of course, but just look out for things wearing out. Check for oil leaks, check for suspension leaking. You know, these new cars have the adaptive suspension, you know, fancy things like that. Check for wheel bearings, clutch, see if the dealer can inspect the clutch life to make sure that's good. I haven't really seen anyone having transmission or clutch issues with these cars. But just your generic used car things to look for. Make sure it's been in good shape. Have a good pre-purchase inspection done by an Audi dealership. That way they can really scan the computer system, inspect the engine's longevity aspects to it, the mechanics of the engine, and just overall wear and tear. There's nothing specifically RS3 related that like you have to look at that one thing. Just general Audi stuff. Make sure it's been well taken care of. Looking to buy a brand new one, the only thing to look out for is any dealer markups. Do not support any dealer that does that. That's the only way you can get dealers to stop doing that, is by not buying that. So there's plenty out there for MSRP. Again, I've seen so many out there for MSRP. Not really anything to look out for as far as new car goes. Just pick the spec you like, see if you can custom order one. We might be getting to the tail end of being able to custom order one of these cars. So if dealers only have high spec $77,000 ones and that is all you have available, you know, is what it is. However, most Audi dealers should be able to hook you up and custom order one. These are not limited produced cars. You shouldn't have any issues with just placing an order. It might take some time. You know, our car took 18 months from when we first got on the list with our dealer to delivery day. With that said though, the first like 8 or 9 months was just waiting for the next allocation to come up. We were not the first people in line. So I don't think it's that crazy anymore, given the supply has increased a little bit with these cars. So you should be pretty good within a year to be able to order one of these and spec it to your liking. I think overall, if you're looking for a really performance-focused car that happens to have back seats and 4 doors, this is the best that they make. There is no other car in the $60,000 to $70,000 range that has this much performance. The BMW M340i is the closest competitor. However, it doesn't have the performance of this. Well, on paper, yes, it has the same horsepower. The handling, the raw characteristics of this car make it stand above the crowd. And that is something that I really love about this. With that, the only big drawback with the car is it's small. The back seats are tight. We got a car seat in here. My wife, my child, and I are in this car. I'm driving because I don't like sitting in the back. It's too small for me. I'm a slender guy, but I'm nearly 6 feet tall. It is small back there. This passenger seat is useless, even for my wife to sit in with a rear-facing car seat. So that's the biggest hiccup with the RS3 is, are you actually going to use the back for car seats, kids, big people, whatever? Take that into consideration. Forward-facing car seats, not really a big deal. The trunk's big enough. It's like 13 cubic feet. And then the only other thing is it's a little raw to drive, which is a lot of fun. It adds a lot of character. It makes it crazy. However, it might not be the smoothest car from day to day, point A to point B. But there you guys go, buyer's guide on the Audi RS3. I would definitely recommend buying these cars. Everyone I've talked to who has owned one has no complaints. They're so much fun. They really pack a lot in a compact sedan with nearly supercar performance. They are really cool. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, stay tuned for plenty more content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.